Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We're really glad that you're in the audience, whether you're watching us live tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, or if you are listening to the podcast later on, or you're watching us live.
There you go.
Any place where you can find us video streaming. Paul Hollis says,
Hey, Paul.
Evening, Rob and Joan. Good evening. Oh, hi, Chris
Hey,
Chrisman. I knew
Chris
you were going to
Chrisman.
be in the audience tonight.
And hello, Sean, he
Hello,
says.
Sean. Yeah. Sean's still backstage, but
Yes, he can hear
he'll
you.
be out. He can hear what we're saying.
Marjorie,
Hello, Marjorie Deering. Hello again. I have my listening ears on.
that's good. Those are good ears to have on. Rabbit ears would be weird.
And Joe Conchal says,
Hey, Joe.
Hey there, Rob and Joan. Hello.
The
hello.
gang's all here.
Yeah. George is missing.
Well, guess what? This is our 3rd anniversary show.
I know.
Believe it or not.
It kind of snuck up on us this year.
Years. My goodness gracious.
We didn't even have a special show with 1 million authors,
No,
though.
we didn't this year. That's sad.
I know.
Oh, well, time is marching on, right?
Yes. It
I
is.
want to remind everybody tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on www.wdjyfm.com and 99.1 FM Atlanta. You'll get to see listen to one of our shows.
Mhm.
Saturday, this coming Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time is episode Rewind. Don't forget to watch that right here where you're watching now. Next Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, author D.G. McCool, sci-fi and fantasy author. He's been in our audience
Lots of
a bunch
times.
of times, and so we're going to get a few of his insights out here.
Yay.
Yes.
Paul Hollis says, Happy anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Chrisman says, wow, 3 years. Congratulations. Thank
Right.
you. Joe Conchal says, wow, congratulations. Marjorie Deering says, three, congratulations. Yeah, and believe it or not, the Haunted Campfire Tales has been on for a little over a year already.
Yeah, which is
Time is flying, guys.
Even more strange.
George Dismukes. No, I'm not. I'm just moving slow and trying to teach my granddaughter Kiki how to tune in. Very good.
Hello, Kiki. Hey, want to remind, or in the news, we've got the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles, book 22, coming out shortly, and that's by Linda Pirtle, and her book in the series it's not her first book either. She's got a couple other ones earlier, but Girlfriend Retreat, ... cheaper than therapy.
And
So,
that's the truth.
Want to watch Amazon for that. Then we've got the San Leon book signing blowout coming up. That's going to be Saturday, April 27th from noon until 4 o'clock, and it could go later. It's going to be at the Pier 6 Seafood Restaurant. Didn't bring up the email.
Sure.
The seafood restaurant there is beautiful. And that's in San Leon, Texas. And we're actively recruiting authors from southeastern Texas. Or if you're going to be in that area, or if you want to come over to it, that's fine too. Get in touch with George at MYANARTINTL@yahoo.com. That's Mayan Art and abbreviated international at yahoo.com. There's several more spots open. I think he has room for about 15 more people. Each author must provide their own tent, table, and chairs. If you don't have a tent, let George know, and arrangements can be made. He's asking for a $25 donation from each author
for promotional.
Advertising to really get the word out there. He really wants to do this up big and give everybody an opportunity, especially the local
it's going to be fun.
Houston area authors, give them a chance to get
I'm sorry
heard.
we're missing it. If you remember, guys, we did a podcast from that restaurant.
I would do another podcast in a heartbeat.
Oh, I mean, it's a gorgeous restaurant, if you remember, because we did a little tour of it and everything, and it's right there on Galveston Bay. And I mean,
and George,
it's got gorgeous.
George hopes that he can make this an annual event to promote books, authors, and reading.
Joy York says slow, and then George just says, no, Mayan Art Intel. Isn't that what we said? No?
Okay. I mistyped it. I'm sorry. Let's get the right one out there. It's MAYAN. Okay, there it is right there. Disregard what I put on there. MAYANARTINTL. You'd think I'd know that by now. But
you should.
I should. But I don't. Okay. Anyway.
Right. So say that again. MAYANARTINTL@yahoo.com.
Good catch, George.
Good catch, George. We'll fix that.
Now we know you're paying attention. That's good. That's the only reason I did that. No, I didn't.
Anyway, I wish we could go. It's going to be a lot of fun, you guys, and that restaurant is amazing, and you'll be able to have a lot of fun. Oh, you left out an A.
I did.
Yeah.
I absolutely did. Okay, well, I think
we should bring on our guest.
Been taking care of business too long here, and it is time to bring on our guest for the evening, Mr. Sean O'Neill.
Hello, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Oh. Hi, how are you guys? And first,
there you are.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on. For a minute, I thought we didn't have sound there.
Thought we had lost you there.
Yeah. So, how are you tonight? Oh.
Yeah, it's funny. It flickered a little bit just a minute or so ago. I'm doing very good. Thank you. We had a wonderful day here in Toronto. It's still, still technically the edge of winter, let's call it, but with a sunny and 70 degrees. So you can't beat that at this time of the year.
Especially for Toronto, right?
Marjorie Deering says, Sean O'Neill,
we're the Great White North.
Right.
Marjorie Deering says, Sean O'Neill. Yeah.
A little further over on an island, let's call it. the Emerald Island is my roots.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover. Sean, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about how you got into writing?
Sure. So I didn't start out as a writer in life. I have been a storyteller my whole life, though. So I guess in some fashion, it's inevitable that I ended up here. I started out in the corporate world. So I'm an MBA by education. And I spent a good 30 plus years in the corporate IT world. So I held, positions everywhere from, head of delivery to head of professional services to chief commercial officer. And then in the final stint, I was the CEO of a small Canadian software company. When I hit my early 50s, I guess not unlike others, I found myself a little bit disillusioned with what I had done and where I was. I mean, I had had a successful career, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was doing perhaps what I was meant to do in this world. And I decided to walk away from everything, which wasn't well received at home initially. When I came home to announce that I was no longer to be a C-level executive, but I was going to become a writer after not having written anything in life. Here we are 6 years. Yeah. Guess what? Guess what I'm going to do now? I'm going to write books. Wait, you'll see. Here we are, just about 6 years on now. So I left at 52. I went to the University of Toronto and took some creative writing courses, trying to get the understanding of how to create the structure of a story properly. But I always had the stories in my head. They've always spun around. As I said, I was that guy at family dinners that sat at the end of the table and told stories for the last 2 hours of the night. I just needed to figure out how to put them on paper. That's what became a passion for me. I will admit that I battled a little bit with the change. You go from a structured sort of process life to one that's a little bit more open and a little bit more, it's creative, but it's less structured. It's harder to identify the end goals. And I went through a period of, I'll admit, I went through a period of depression as I started out into the writing world. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know really quite where to start. I took the courses, started writing some stuff, but I wasn't sure where to take it. And the depression, it really got to me. It caused me some very serious mental health issues that I battled with for some time. Ultimately, the writing itself became therapy. And I found myself going away from being depressed because I had this new objective. I had a purpose in life. I had a goal to achieve, and that was the creation and ultimately the publication of the stories. So I read somewhere, actually a couple of times I've read this, that only 3% of people who start out to write a book get to the end of writing a book. And of those people, only 3% of those ever publish the book. So for me, that became, okay, here's a challenge. I'm going to beat the 3%. I'm going to beat the 3%. I'm going to get a book out. And I did. I wrote my first book, The Guts of It, in Africa. I decided to take a 2-month journey, soul-searching journey, let's call it, across Africa. And while I was there, I created the bulk of that first book, Brian's Dream, which echoed a lot of my own personal character, a lot of the challenges that I went through. And also, the other lead in the story is Parminder, who is really the model of my wife, Balbinder. Yes, that's the book there. And it started a process that now, 6 years later, I am about to publish my 15th novel, Galway Banshees. I just had number 14, Jill, come out in a month or so ago. And I moved from just writing novels to, again, I went back to school to Ryerson and I took film study. And I learned the business of film, the business of movies. And I learned how to screenwrite. I learned how to write adaptations. So I've been able to take my own adaptations, or my own stories, and write my own adaptations of them. And I've been very successful from a film festival perspective in terms of the success of those adaptations, those screenplays. So I've won a number. I recently won the Austin Short Film Festival, which is very popular and fairly large film festival. I won for Best International Screenplay. And I'm sort of sitting at this strange place in life again where got the book writing down. I've got the next 6 novels planned out for the next 2 to 3 years. But I've made very good headway on the screenwriting side. As a matter of fact, so much so that I've started the process of co-producing one of them. There's still work to do. We're in the financing stage. Inevitably, somebody will come in and take control. I hope I can deal with that. But I do like the idea of seeing what I created in my own head as something that people can actually watch on a screen and see the interpretation.
Yeah, definitely. So you had mentioned Brian's Dream and Jill. So let me bring those up. It's Jill, Brian's Dream, Zahara's Miracle, and Paraminda's Legacy. Now that's all of
James Game.
Oh, and James Game. Yep, almost left one out. That would have been wrong. I remember him. He's the British guy.
He's the British guy who wants to be a blue blood.
Got it. So those are all in your romantic thriller series.
Yes.
Right.
So 3 of them, Brian's Dream, Sahara's Miracle, and Parminder's Legacy, are actually part of a trilogy. The stories are all connected through, it's actually 2 generations of family. It starts in India, transcends to Boston, then to Toronto, to the UK, and then the final bulk of the last book returns to India. So it kind of closes the loop on this a multi-generational story of, it's as I mentioned to you folks earlier, that's the story is a lot about Indian mysticism. It's about the challenges of life. It's about the power of women and the strength of women. So my wife is the model for Parminder in it, and my daughters play a role in the book as well. The three of them I greatly look up to as very strong, independent, and sensible people in this world. So I wanted to create something that told that story, and told an uplifting, positive story for people who live through challenges.
Right, which we all do. That's every human.
We all have demons, right?
Nathan Rita, cool. And George Dismuke says, I like your book covers. I do too.
They're very well done.
I like the book covers. I really, really like this one so much.
That's interesting. I think I've mentioned this before, but I fretted over that cover so much because it wasn't really what I had in my head, strangely enough. And then when I work with a company called Book Cover Design Company out of the US, and they showed me this one, and I don't know, what the hell, we'll try it. And it's been very popular. So sometimes I'm not the best judge of the cover.
Joy York says, that is wonderful that you honored the woman in your family. And it is.
Right. They deserve it. I think more should be done to promote, women in this world, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think poor Rob probably thinks men should be promoted because, he comes from a household of women. Oh, yeah.
Oh boy.
We have 5 daughters and 1 son. So, and all of our pets have always been females. It's just been.
Well, I've got 2 daughters and a female dog.
There you go. George Dismuke says, I honor my woman or she makes me sleep outside.
Well, there is that.
That's a very strong woman. That's funny. Okay, let's see. That's what we don't have that much time left to talk about. How about if we go through your supernatural books? Mm-hmm.
So,
and everybody knows that that's what I love.
Yes, I suspected that to be the case.
Right.
So Grindhouse Canada and Grindhouse Caribbean, I wrote these and I refer to them as triple features. So really what they are is they're 3 stories, or 3 supernatural stories in each book. So they're kind of 70, 75 pages. And one of them you've had the opportunity to listen to now. So that was from the Grindhouse Canada. It was the BC Night Train, which is now on Book TV. The intention of those stories was really kind of old school. I grew up watching, late night horror movies as soon as I was old enough to stay up. I've read thousands of books, and I never went anywhere without a paperback in my backpack or my bag.
Yeah.
So I love the, for me, the 70s into the 80s, those classic horror features, those have always stuck with me. I grew up with that. So I wanted to write something that kind of harkened back to that era. So Grindhouse Canada, 3 stories that are centered around a common theme called the Reaper. It's an indigenous spirit that writes nature. So when man does something so evil, it tears nature, the Reaper writes it. And it writes it in different ways and in different times and different places. So I span the country with the stories. One is a Fogo Island blind spot, which takes place in Newfoundland. Then I picked the middle of the country for the Manitoba Mining Mist, and then the West Coast for the BC Night Train.
Can I ask you a question, Sean?
Sure.
In that Reaper, is that a real spirit to the indigenous, to the people's, nation in Canada, the indigenous people there, or is that a figment of your imagination?
It's a combination of two things. There are bases for similar spirits in the Indigenous world, but I crafted mine in such a way to fit the nature of the stories.
Okay.
So it's not very far-fetched, but it's not a specific one that I could say it's this spirit from this lore.
The Indigenous people here in the United States have what they call a watcher, which is that kind of a spirit that you're talking about,
Right.
but they're very, very big, and you don't want to mess with them.
Yeah, we don't want to mess with the Reaper. The Reaper either. It's a pretty powerful spirit.
The name kind of says it all, doesn't it? The Reaper.
Yeah.
Okay. And so part of that was also the Comatose Diaries. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that was my second one. Yeah, and the Chosen. So the Comatose Diaries, I'll just quickly cover. That was my first real horror. And again, it's a little old school, supernatural, New England, fall time frame, deal with the devil gone wrong. It's kind of a fun, lighter hearted horror. When I started out, I wasn't sure how dark I wanted to get. So this is one of my lighter ones. And so it's PG-13, if not even lower than that. But it's an enjoyable story, and I get a lot of good feedback on it. The Chosen is different. The Chosen is dark. That's a PG-17. It's about, I take this concept that as you have good and evil in this world, you have dark and light. You have positive and negative. So I create this darkness from negative energy in the universe. So it's this concept that, you have positrons, you have negatrons, you have this it's almost an evil matter in the universe. So these things are transcended souls. They're the equivalent of evil souls. And one of them affects a group of young boys in Belfast in the early 1970s. So they're living in a difficult period as it is. It's the Troubles, the IRA, it's the separation of North and South. And they get taken in and do a very bad dead. And it's
hate to interrupt you and break the flow here, but we're a little late for our
sorry.
for a commercial break. No problem.
We see the comments and we'll bring them up. There are some questions for you, and we'll catch up when we get back.
Stay tuned. Okay. We got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, a lot.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Now comes part 4 in the Jaguar series by retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. In this saga, Brandon, Andrea, and Naja, the Black Jaguar, go deep into the Mato Grosso jungle on a mission to rescue 2 kidnapped children. During their journey, they encounter many dangers, including Yanomami Indians, bent on revenge for the murder of one of their warriors.
Return of the Jaguar is book 4 in the Jaguar series, starting with 2 faces of the Jaguar, the Lost City, and the Jaguar's Quest. All 4 are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other bookseller websites worldwide. Return of the Jaguar is a must-read.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. Police officer Madison Jackson awakes to discover her baby kidnapped from her crib. Was it revenge for someone she arrested, or something far more sinister? Madison's estranged husband is incarcerated in Supermax. As the second in command of a deadly Mexican cartel, did he issue the order to abduct their daughter? Bye, Baby, Bye, from author Kelly Marshall. Get your copy today.
The clock is ticking. Can Gracie uncover the truth?
Philip Pliant is the wealthy opportunist plastics dealer and CEO of Pliant Industries. He's also a master thief, creating a pervasive threat to the manufacturing infrastructure in the Caribbean islands markets. With the cartel as his stealth client, the naive city leaders have been seduced, enabling the production of more than 3-dimensional building materials.
The expected profits are monstrous.
Is the art group, now led by Gracie and the family heirs, strong enough to win against this predator?
Can JJ's cats act on the root cause analysis in time?
Will Gracie be able to squash Pliant and the cartels?
Gracie never considered their lives would hang in the balance. The clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3.
For those just listening to that last commercial, that's from the Enigma Tracer by Brakefield and Berkey. I'm also available on Amazon.
So George Dismuke says, so Sean, the characters in my books pretty much take over and go where they want to go. You too, or are you more structured?
I tend to lean on the less structured side. So I understand what I want the roles of each of the characters to play. But when I begin writing a book, I have a general idea of the story that I want to tell. How it's gonna play out, I'm not always 100% sure. So sometimes from chapter to chapter, I'm weaving along too, going, well, all right, this is where it's going. Okay, fine, let's take it there. I put an end post. So I'll write the last chapter sometime as I get towards the middle of the book. So I know where I'm going to end. It allows me to then create the space between where I am and that end point. But exactly what path it takes is often open to the whim of the day or the feeling that I have after perhaps conversations or watching something or reading something. I don't want to pretend that the story I crafted in my head is the best and final. It can always be improved as I go along.
Joe Condrell said he had to step away for a few minutes. His dog's foot was bleeding and she was staining up the kitchen floor, had her toenails cut today. Ouchie. But his question is, hi, Sean, if all the different books you've written, is there one that stands out as your favorite out of the 15?
Yeah, there is. So I think there's two that I always look at. One is Love in the Time of EMPs is my personal favorite because I love the nature of the story. I love the characters in it. I love the fact that they're 18 years old dealing with, the end of the world. They're coming of age. They're falling in love as the world falls apart around them. And I baked into it this whole concept of the Dylan Club. So they're artists, they're musicians, they're poets. They're brilliant young people that are trying to change their world for the better through music and written word. I just personally attached to that story myself. So when I wrote it, it was an easy write. It flowed out. I loved how it felt. I also really, the other one, it's very different. It's called the Omega Variant. I just think it tells a very crafty story and a very telling story in an era where we're facing, challenges very much within our own borders. We've just lived through a pandemic. What if it were to return? And I play a lot of politics, which I rarely do, but I try to play it in a balanced manner. We live in a political world, but I try to tell stories as opposed to telling politics. But this one, I bring in, the left, the right, the challenges of both, and how to try to overcome such a horrific event as a new plague in an already fractured world. And I like the way it's written. I think it's my best written book, I have to say. And it's interesting because it often garners comparisons to Stephen King type work. So I get a lot of comments of it being a very Kingish book, or it's got King overtones to it. And while I didn't do that intentionally, I will tell you the book and the movie The Stand were part of the thinking behind the creation of the Omega Variant.
So those are two of your apocalyptic books, and you have two other ones that you like, or that you wrote, The Plague Judgment Day
and Demons Judgment Day.
Demons Judgment Day, right?
Yeah, so they're part of what will be a trilogy. The Plague is where the whole thing starts. Demons kind of picks it up, and then the Judgment Day / The Final Voyage will be the last one to come out in 2020, late 2025. There again play on this concept of a darkness or a dark matter in this universe, and the earth passes into this dark matter, and the matter interacts with normal matter, and everything starts to change. So it's a judgment day. It's got some biblical connection to it, but it's much more universal in its nature, in how it sort of morphs the earth and it morphs people. And the plague is where it starts. It starts in a very strange medical institution in San Francisco. And then it jumps into demons, which takes place a couple of days later out of Las Vegas. So, if you're if you're going to be around for Judgment Day, maybe Sin City isn't the best place to be. So there's a little bit of play on Sin City. And it carries on this concept of self-judgment. And the liner in the book is we all have demons in us, and we do all have demons with it. I dealt with mine, right? I dealt with addiction when I went through depression, and I understand that depth of feeling. I understand that depth of nature, and I wanted to sort of get that into a story, but with more of a, well, I won't say it's a positive outcome. It's an apocalyptic book, but it does have positive, very good positive aspects to it. In the way that people work together, and the way they band together to sort of search for hope.
Okay. Well, while we're on Demons Judgment Day, is that the one you wanted to read from?
Sure. Yeah. If you can bear with me.
It has disappeared there. It looks like your sun went down in Toronto.
Yeah, it's gotten dark here. Eh? Do you mind if I turn on the lights?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know how you'd read if you didn't.
Exactly. Might slow things down. There we go.
There we go. Much better.
Okay. I'm back.
And you're wearing a black shirt, so you just were kind of like a...
Yeah, it was just a head. It was just a head, yeah. It's like some of my books. There you go.
Well, we did kind of go
if
from
you're ready, I'm happy
romantic
to
thrillers. We went from romantic thrillers to supernatural and then into apocalypse. So it kind of made sense that it would get darker.
Yeah, actually, you got a very good point there. And I write a fairly broad range of stories.
Yeah,
I didn't want to stick to one, right?
Right.
If you're ready, I can go through the passage with you.
Well, real quick here, Joe Concha said, perfect for the reading.
Yeah.
And Marjorie Deering said, I thought the demons were messing with him. It did kind of I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? All right. Yeah. Without further ado, go ahead.
Whenever you're
ready. So this is a clip from around the middle part of the book Demons. Edwin fell into a sleep quicker than he had expected. He was soon into a dream. In the dream, Edwin found himself sitting at a card table with 3 other people. They were in a large open space. It was dark and there was a mist in the air. There was also an odor, one he recognized immediately. It was death. As his eyes adjusted, he noticed that one of the other 3 at the table was a card dealer. He stood above the rest of them and was dressed all in black, including a black hood, which hid his face. The other players were the 2 friends who had been with him that day when he had seen the dead body as a teen. The 2 were the same age they were that day when they saw it. A scream pierced the air. Edwin turned to see a woman, rather a girl, as she was but a teenager. She was strung up like the dead body he had witnessed. She was covered in slashes and bruises, as was the body all those years ago. As he looked closer, he noticed that it was the woman from the cabin incident the previous day. He helped me, she whimpered. Edwin attempted to get up to help her, but he suddenly felt a large and powerful hand grip him around the back of the neck. He turned to see it was a dealer. His arm was impossibly long. He slammed him back down into his chair with force. No one leaves this table until the game is done, the dealer said, looking directly at Edwin. Edwin nodded. Blackjack is a game, the dealer said with his voice rumbling the air. He began dealing the cards. Each player was dealt 1 card face up. The first boy received the ace of spades. The second boy received the ace of clubs. Edwin received the jack of spades. The 2 boys kept their eyes down, shaking with fear. On the second pass, the cards were placed face up. This time, the cards were not playing cards. They were tarot cards. All three of them had a tarot card placed face down in front of them. The dealer turned to Edwin. "Turn the card," he said in a deep rumbling voice. Edwin put his hand on the card, but his attention was torn away by the girl's screams again. He turned to look at her and saw that her eyelids were gone. The dealer banged hard on the card table and screamed, "Turn the card." Edwin slowly turned it over. When the card was finally exposed, he saw it was the death card. He dropped the card and tried to run, but found himself bound up in place of the young woman. A dark hand was slowly approaching his face. It held a straight razor. The hand moved slowly towards his left eye. He knew what was going to happen and began to scream. Edwin was shaken awake by Maureen for the second night in a row. "Jesus, Edwin, you were screaming again." The first thing he did was to reach up and touch his eyelids. They were there. Thank God, he thought.
Wow.
Ooh, that's good.
Dark. This is one of my darker ones.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of dark. Huh?
Joe Kong just said, "Sean, you have the perfect voice for this reading."
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Joy, you're right. Joy York said, "Intense." Yes, it was intense. Funny story. I had a, I'm so glad the doctor called me this morning.
Yeah.
I just had to have a biopsy taken off one of my eyelids because they thought I had cancer on my eye. And I got the results of the biopsy today. It's not cancer, it's benign.
Oh,
and so, but if I had to listen to somebody losing their eyelids tonight,
Wouldn't have been good timing.
wouldn't have been good timing. Everybody would have been like, "Joan, why are you crying?"
That's bad timing, isn't it? It's interesting. The idea behind the eyelids is that you can't hide. So you're exposed to everything, all aspects of your life. It's sort of metaphorical in the story. It doesn't really happen in a story; it just happens in a series of dreams.
George Dixmuth says a woman ghoul was her name, Deborah. I'm sorry, I gave it. I know it's Deborah.
I do have a banshee in Galway Banshees, and that's a woman.
I want to bring up that Galway Banshee version 3. Yes, I think I put Marjorie's up, didn't I? That looks great, by the way.
That's a pretty cool cover too.
Yeah, it is.
I like all your covers.
That one was exactly what I was looking for. It just fit in perfectly. As you know from the Irish legends and myths, Banshee is a weeping. They're weeping women. They're the harbingers or harbearers of death to come.
Oh yeah, a woman. Okay, I'm sorry. Marjorie said, "So glad you got good news, John." Thanks, Marjorie. Me too. Me too.
Yeah, that's good.
It's really good. But that was just funny. When you started reading that, I was like, whoa.
Oops.
Joy said, "Great cover for the Galway Banshee." It is. Marjorie Deering said, "Who does your cover, Sean?"
So I work with a cover company out of the U.S. It's Book Cover Zone. So most of my covers are actually off the shelf, but I get them tailored. I do the occasional one where I'll use a custom piece of work and get them to build a cover around it. I've been lucky enough. They have such a volume of covers that I've been lucky enough to generally find a cover that represents the story that I want to tell. It's interesting because I buy the covers very early on because the cover is a visual cue for me to create the story. So I'm building a story to the imagery that the cover portrays.
Joe Conjal asked, "Do you have the same cover artist for each book?" He kind of answered that. George says, "Please show that cover again." Okay, the Galway Banshee, George. It's pretty cool. I really like it.
Yeah, that one just popped right into my eye when I saw it. It filled the story or represented the story very much so in the aspect of how I wanted to tell it. West Coast Ireland, 1970s, fog, rain.
It says, "Sometimes legends and myths are far more real than we would like to believe." I know that to be true. Yeah, Joconda said you just answered my question. And yeah, if you want me to, I can put it up again, George. It's really good. I really, really like it.
So that one comes out when?
Right now, I'm targeting late May. I'm 55,000 words in. Probably another 6,000 to finish it off, and then I've got a month of editing. I do 2 edit passes, send it to an editor, get it back, then I send it to beta readers, get it back, and I do 2 more edit passes before.
It all takes time, doesn't it?
It does.
It's so much fun. Part of the learning I had in the early years was, oops, I should not have put that out just yet. So now I have a very rigorous process for getting books out.
Well, it's time for our second break. And when we get back, we will tell people where to get a hold of you. And we'll talk to you a little bit, talk about your screenwriting and the filmmaking.
If you want to, we can talk about more books.
Yeah. I'm happy to do each. The film side is interesting, and folks might find it interesting. The transition from book to script to film to production package.
There you go. All right, so we'll be right back. Don't go away, folks. Got a lot to go yet.
Paradise, my prison. Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise, My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Paradise, My Prison by George Dismukes is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide.
It's 1919, and Eric Laska returns from the war in Europe. 2 new enemies await him in the small, coal-mining town he calls home. One is a threat to his relationship with Rebecca, the love of his life. The other, a bloodthirsty beast, is stalking the mining town residents. The townspeople suspect Eric of one of the killings. An old man and Rebecca's 11-year-old sister have seen the beast, but only Eric believes their story. To protect the town and clear his name, he's forced to prove the werewolf exists. Available on Amazon. The Horror Within by Marjorie Swift Doring.
Step into the captivating world of skullduggery, where a family of isolated peasant copyholders finds themselves thrust into a web of danger that threatens their very existence. Set against the tumultuous backdrop of the English Reformation, this meticulously researched historical mystery unfolds with a cast of both lovable and despicable characters, immersing you in a fully realized world that's both utterly believable and fantastically unbelievable. Author Paul Rushworth Brown weaves a spellbinding narrative that transports you to Yorkshire, England, in the 16th and 17th centuries, offering an authentic and gritty portrayal of peasant life. The pages come alive with vivid descriptions, crafting an atmosphere that pulls you deeper into a story of crime, murder, and suspense like no other.
Hi, I'm Paul Rushworth Brown, author of Skullduggery, Red Winter Journey, and Demon Courage, just recently released. I hope you enjoy Skullduggery, the second edition. Cheers.
So Marjorie Deering said, I tried to make out the shape in the background of that cover. It looks a little like a diving bell, but I'm probably wrong. She's talking about the Galway Banshee.
Oh, it's well, from memory, it's a forested area with
I'll bring it up.
Yeah, it's a forested area with trees. I don't think there's any man-made structures there. I believe it's just sort of a old knotted wooded area with.
You see a bird.
Yeah, there's a bird in there, definitely. I'd have to
flying saucer. Like
a flying saucer right there.
That would be odd, but you never know.
Off to the right of the, well.
It looks like a church.
maybe there is. Maybe I haven't looked closely enough at it. I believe.
And I see what she thinks is the diving bell. It looks like there's a flying saucer that looks like there's a round shape around that.
Around it, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But,
yeah.
I see what you mean.
So the story does also have a play around a church, the Catholic Church cemeteries, as well as back in the 1800s when there was the Irish famine. There was a concept of the waiting dead. So it's got sort of that structure within the story as well. So it fits the story.
Yeah, I never heard anything about the potato famine. I'm kidding. That's all I heard about growing up.
You're Irish, I know. I'm sure you know it.
He says it's his ex-wife, Deborah, without makeup. George Dismuke said that.
Seeing a theme here.
Yeah. Yep, you do indeed. So did we get in? Yeah. Did we get in all of your supernatural books? So it's the Grindhouse Canada, Grindhouse Caribbean, and those are 3 short stories in each of those books, right?
Yeah.
And then the Comatose Diary.
So I was just going to say Grindhouse Caribbean, the theme of the stories is trying to beat death. One takes place in Mexico on the Day of the Dead. The other takes place in Haiti. And the last one is in, I have to go back. I believe it's Jamaica. Oh, it's Jamaica. Yeah, Jamaica, Haiti, and Mexico. 3 stories in that one. Wrote that one a while back too.
Did any of them beat death? Let me think. No.
Temporarily they do. In the long run, guess who wins?
I know, right? Very good. I think we covered all of them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we?
Yeah, I believe you have too. The only other one I would mention is Jill, because Jill is the latest, and it's a very different book for me. It's my longest book. It's 80,000 words. I'm typically closer to 55,000, and it's got a dark, troubled character in it. A 6 foot tall, bald albino actress who hails from the Midwest, from growing up in the 1920s. You can imagine the kind of life she had growing up. Her mother dies at giving birth to her. So she ends up being a tormented character, but becomes an actress as she escapes to LA and then gets this gig to play. And I researched all this. This is all true stories. Around 1953, as the American occupation of Japan lifted, the Japanese film market, cinematography market, cinema market exploded. All local creations, people telling stories. So what the bulk of the story is about is this woman who goes to Tokyo, not knowing. You imagine 1930s or 1950s when she goes, nobody knew anything about it. It's post-war. There's hatred between the two countries, and she ends up being the lead in silent film remakes by the Japanese of American classics. So she goes over to do Casablanca, and then she does Gone with the Wind. And the Japanese, loving this unusual character, she just explodes. She becomes this huge thing, and she struggles with being this thing where she always sees herself as a monster, and now she's this huge star. And the dichotomy of that really tears her apart, and it becomes sort of a sordid underground through the depths of Tokyo's underground world with an American reporter from Time magazine who's gone over to do a report on her in the Japanese film industry. I've spent time in Tokyo, and I know the sort of the back streets. It's a fascinating place. So it's got, it's even got the emperor in it. It's a fascinating, complex story. Let's just leave it that way.
I'm just imagining a 6 foot tall, albino, bald lead actress in Casablanca.
Yeah. So she that's exactly that's what they wanted. They wanted this unusual character to play it. But what she finds as on the way over, they sent her over on a ship, a first-class ship. From that point all the way through her time in Tokyo, she realizes that everybody has an agenda. It's post-war. The war is not really over. And this guy who goes over with Time magazine, he's the son of a U.S. senator. So there's all this espionage play going on in the background where this person is struggling with who she is, stuck inside this world of espionage, 10,000 miles from home. So I enjoyed writing it. It was a challenge to write. It took a lot of research. I had to bring in a co-writer for some parts because they were darker and sort of different than what I've written in the past. But I felt it needed to be part of that story.
Well, let me bring up your websites and stuff so people can know where to reach you. Want to read that?
Yeah. Your website is www.Sean, that's SEAN -O'Neill, ONEIL -writer, WRITER.com. That's Sean-O'Neill-writer.com.
For his filmmaking.
For the filmmaking, it's www.sensory-films.com. That's SENSORY-films, FILMS.com, for those of you who are just listening. And if you need to send an email, if you'd like to reach him by email with questions or comments or whatever, Sean_C_O'Neill@hotmail.com.
Okay, that's good. And I'm sure that he would love to hear from you, right, Sean?
Yeah, I love to talk about the business. I love to talk about, I do a lot of work with new writers coming along. It's the challenge of figuring out how to get that first book published.
When we were talking yesterday, you were talking a lot about the screenplays and the transition. You want to chat a little bit about that? I think everyone would be interested in hearing about it.
Yeah, so I'm a visual person by nature. And when I write the books, I often get commentary back saying, well, it's not the typical writing. And it's not. It's a writing that's intended to almost be words of a film. So I realized that I was kind of doing that, perhaps unbeknownst to myself, but I was almost creating a film with the book. So I decided to go back to Ryerson here in Toronto, and I studied screenwriting and business of film and so on. And I figured out how to do my adaptations. And I happen to be pretty good at it because I already started with a visual in my head of the story. Writing in the method of a screenplay, once I learned the dynamics of how to do it, or the basis of how to do it, I was able to do the transition pretty quickly. So I do flip back and forth. I've got 7 films written. 6 of them are from my own books, and 1 is some work I did with a European filmmaker. It is a different style of writing. It's everything's present tense. It's firsthand. You can't. It's interesting because in a book, I can get into people. You can get into the head, right? So Jill, as an example, I can get into Jill's head. I can tell you what she's thinking, why she's feeling this way, what's upsetting her, what she's thinking about doing about it. You can't do that in a screenplay. Everything has to be visual. So it has to be words. It has to be actions. It has to be. Occasionally you can use narrative, but you can't overuse narrative because then you're not really creating a film. You're just putting a book on paper, on pictures. And once I was able to get to the point where I was quite successful creating these screenplays, I started figuring out, well, where am I going to take this? This is great. I've written a book. Now I've written a movie for it. What do I do with it? How do I get a movie made? So I started doing the pre-production work myself. I went out, worked with some producers, some directors, and they gave me guidance on how do you build it. So now I build my own pre-production packages. So the package includes all of the work that needs to be done to actually film the film. So it's got the actors. So I'm doing The Chosen right now. So I've signed up all the actors, and I have Mickey Rourke signed up for it. I've got Greg Brick, a well-known Canadian actor. We're working on an offer to Colm Meaney right now. I've got a director in place. We're talking to several producers. I built all the scenes, all the you build the extra. There's a whole bunch of tabs in that pre-production package that takes it from a series of written words in a book to a series of written words in a film that describes what the film will look like, to a series of actions that are required in order for someone to come in with the camera. It's a big team coming with the camera and lights and everything, and actually produce the film. So it's been a fascinating undertaking. I've learned a lot about Hollywood. A lot I wish I didn't know about Hollywood. It is very much, to my experience so far, as you hear stories about it. But as I am in the book side, I'm in the indie side of filmmaking, and have developed a decent reputation so far.
That's good. Hang on just one second. We just need to say good night to everybody that's listening in Atlanta. We thank you very much for joining us, and come back next week at 9 o'clock, and we'll entertain you some more. Would love to see you.
Everybody else, you can stay.
All right.
There we go. All right.
We said good night to Atlanta.
We said good night to Atlanta.
Good night, Atlanta.
We had to cut it off there, or they would have, the radio station cuts it off, and then it's weird.
Yeah, that would be all right mid-sentence, right? Yeah.
Yes. Chop.
So I mean that's kind of the right now the challenge, as it is for every filmmaker, is funding, is financing. So an indie film, a Canadian indie film, $1 million to $1.2 million is kind of like the lower budget. That's not a micro budget. That's kind of a lowish budget. Where in the US, it's more like $2.5 to $3 million. So The Chosen's $2.6 million budget. We work, every jurisdiction offers tax credits. Ontario offers very good tax credits at 40%. So, you're taking $1 million off of that, or nearly $1 million off of that 2.6. So you're looking for $1.5 million. The challenge is so is everybody else. So you've got to sell it to a production house, a streamer, or a distribution house. So distributors will sometimes come in and say, based on the actors you have, the nature of the screenplay, the director, we're going to give you a minimum guarantee. So we'll give you a minimum guarantee of $1 million. So we'll front it. We'll put $1 million up after you make the movie. So you have to finance that $1 million, but you can get it financed because you have an agreement. And then you have finance. You either have a production house. You think about Netflix or Sony or any of the A24 was a great one until recently, because for us, and because now they're no longer indie, they're big time guys. They were terrific years ago for indies. Blumhouse was another one that was terrific for indies. So it's convincing. It's very much like a startup, which I've lived through earlier in my career, right? So it's convincing people that your project will net a return enough to make it the investment worthwhile. And that can be a tough sell.
So right now you've got The Chosen is the one that you're working on right now, right?
Yeah.
Which one did you say? Did you say which one was next, or that you'd like to do next?
So I've already done the first part of the pre-production on the BC Night Train. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the 6 stories from the 2 Grindhouse books, and I'm creating a streaming series called Tales from the Grindhouse.
Okay.
So that should be right up Supernatural fans' alley. That's it. So right now I'm looking at a budget in the neighborhood of probably $600K for a 45-minute pilot. And so here's the struggle is, I don't want to walk into an investor and say, oh, I've got all these projects. You go, and I know that from my startup days. I was very successful in the startup world. You go in and you say, this is it. This is the cat's ass. I'm selling this and you got to buy it. If I go in and say, I got this, I got this, I got this. So I'm building all the material for that streaming series. But I'm kind of waiting to see where The Chosen goes before I really start pitching it hard. The reality is it's an easier pitch because 600K is easier. Take tax credits, you're down to 400, probably eligible for a Canadian grant of 100K. So you'll get maybe 300K. It's a lot easier than $1.5 million. So
George says, so talk about movies. How do you secure funding? So I think that you answered that. And then he said, are you interested in Lionsgate for a distributor?
Sure. If they'd be interested in me. so this
Lionsgate is George's project.
Oh, really? So yeah, I mean, Lionsgate's right at the top of our list in terms of distributors. They got a Canadian presence, the North American global footprint. They would be wonderful. It's being able to get in as a first time filmmaker. It's to get in and convince them that it's a good investment. So we're working with Buffalo 8 out of Hollywood right now. So they represent us, although it's non-exclusive. So they're representing us and I'm representing us. And I've I brought on board 2 old friends from Bay Street here in Toronto, which is your Wall Street, to fundraise. So they're looking at, they're confident in the $400,000 to $500,000 range that they'll be able to pull in. So, we've got the basis of funding. We've got discussions going on with some of the distributors and some of the production houses. But if somebody were to link me up with Lionsgate, I'd be over the moon.
Joyce says, sorry, she has to go.
Good night, Joy.
Great show. Good night, all. Good night, Joy. Thanks for listening. You said Buffalo's 8?
Buffalo's 8.
Yeah, Buffalo 8, and they're part of they're the joint agency? Yeah, so they're a production house. Well, they're an executive producer out of Hollywood. So they work in conjunction with Bondit. So Bondit it's a company that funds. So to the question of how do you secure financing, so when you have deals in place like a distribution deal, it's called an MG, a minimum guarantee. So if I have a minimum guarantee for $1 million with Lionsgate, I would go to someone to fund it. And Bondit is a company that will fund that $1 million. They'll also fund the tax credits once I have the paperback from the Ontario government that says this film project is entitled to the following tax credit. So they go through it with a fine tooth comb and they say, okay, yeah, $750,000 based on these expenditures. So you get that funding so I don't put up the cash. In fact, every film project is an LLC. It's a limited liability corporation. It's a separate entity. And so the money is managed so I bring on an accounting firm that manages the funds. I don't touch the funds. They go into, really a trust account, and then it's managed out of that. So it's there's a whole process to it. Took me a little while to learn it. I got it now. But yeah, I figured it out. Now it's getting in front of the right people, and slowly but surely we're making our way. It's hard to get your foot in the door in Hollywood. Having the books behind me is a huge help. And because I'm indie, I own 100% of the rights of everything. I own 100% of the rights of my books, 100% of the rights of the screenplay. So I'm the one guy to talk to at the end of the day.
That's what I like about being indie published.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I couldn't get a publisher early on. I could now. I don't want one now. I much enjoy the freedom, flexibility, and control that I have with this model.
Publishers today don't really do that much for you. I know that the small publishing houses are different. The indie publishing houses are completely different. I'm talking about the big name publishers, the old time publishers.
Yeah,
we know a lot of small publishers that do well by their people.
Yeah, but it's I've always found it interesting that, and Hollywood's a perfect example of this. So many people make money off someone else's creation.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, I like indie publishers and I like indie authors. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's what I advise people. As I mentioned, I'll get contacted, I'll get calls, people saying, look, what do I do? I've written a manuscript. What do I do? And I'm very happy to help them get through that process of getting an editor in to make sure it's clean, and then going through the KDP process. It's once you've done it once, it's
once you do it once. Yeah.
Joe Conjal says it takes a year or more to see your book in print if you go to any of those big publishing houses.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
you know.
that's what I've heard too. And so on the equivalency of the screenwriting side, you can option a screenplay, and you option it for 10 years, and you never see, and it doesn't go anywhere. It just gets buried. There's nothing you can do about it.
Paul Hollis has a publishing house where you get 100% control of your book, and he just directs you to, you know, editor and all that kind of thing that you need, has it all there in house for you to use. And then I think CJ Peterson is the same way. And Kirsten has a small, Kirsten Hall has a small publishing house, same thing. And so she
loads up her car with her books and takes them out to the stores
and libraries
and takes them and says, "Here, you carry these books," and just goes all over all the small towns all over the place. You know,
I've done that.
that's a lot of hard work.
She does that for all of her people. Publish.
Oh wow. Yeah. So that is a lot. I know how much it is just for me.
Just for one person, it's a lot. But when you're doing it for all of your clients,
that's why the book signing, I think, that George is putting together there in San Leon is going to be so much fun, because you're going to be in a beautiful setting, number one. And then number two, you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people, by, you know, a whole bunch of authors. And there's, you know, I just think it's going to be great.
Right. I think so too.
And then
it's a fabulous restaurant there.
Yeah.
It sounds wonderful. I like the idea for sure. You know, I wish it was territory. I'd definitely attend.
Yeah. We'd like to attend. We just
they're hoping to have about 30 authors. So.
Oh, that's nice.
That's a big book fair. It's a book fair, basically.
It's a big book fair. It really is.
Well, you're getting readers. You know, it's not just passerbys on Facebook or Amazon. You're getting people that are readers, and they're looking for stories to read.
Yeah. And you should see this place. Yeah, I mean,
oh my God,
really, it's beautiful.
Really upscale, really nice.
And you can eat oysters there.
I'm a seafood fan, so I'd be in for that.
Well, the owner of that restaurant, his family owns one of the biggest oyster companies where they go out and they have trawlers that go out and catch the oysters and bring them in. So they're fresh oysters, and they're like amazing. I know we've had them. Really good. They do
straight out of the water.
Straight out of the water.
Pretty much.
It was straight out of the bay that you're looking at while you're out there signing books.
You place your order with the waitress. She goes out, gets them from the water, and brings them right back in.
Throws
can't
down
get any fresher than
chicken
that. There you go.
In a trap.
You can't get fresher.
Takes a while. It takes a while to get your order, but
you have a beer in between.
Or two.
Yeah. That's that's interesting. You certainly have delved into the whole filmmaking thing. I wish you luck.
Yeah,
you do need a little luck in this industry. You need contacts and luck. Skill is there. A lot of people have the skill. It's breaking that door down, the first one.
Yeah, well, you gotta figure it out, like you said. It sounds like you've done that. So but figuring out is no thing to do.
I'm close. I mean, there's still more to learn, but I certainly can present a full package now to a production house. And I believe reasonably well. It's up to them to decide, I guess, at the end of the day.
Well, you need to let us know what happens, keep in touch and let us know how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. I hope to have a good story to tell about it in the next few months.
That'd be good.
It'd be good for my end too.
Okay. And George says, Prestige Gulf Coast Oysters, Inc. Yeah. #1 in the movie business. No, in the movie biz, you need a lot of luck.
Yeah, he's got it.
Right place, right time factors in too, doesn't it?
It's right contacts is very much the other thing. So I believe it or not, there's a huge film community on LinkedIn. which surprised me. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's one of my biggest social network areas.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a really good resource for indie authors too. I mean, it's overlooked. People don't use it like they should, but
yeah, I agree. It's where I started as an indie author. That's what drove me to LinkedIn. And once there, I found this incredible film community.
Yeah,
so I've got 5,000 contacts now, or followers now. And, they've been very, very helpful to me so far.
All right. Some of the book clubs you can join and stuff like that, get the word out. Lots of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, LinkedIn is surprising. I think a lot of authors don't realize that there are a lot of authors on LinkedIn.
Yep.
You need to go. You need to join.
This show is out there tonight, even on LinkedIn. So
it's being produced
live. So.
Broadcast live. Well, even as we speak.
I will be sharing the link as well on my LinkedIn followers.
Very good. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? Or
no. Anybody else have any more questions before we wrap up the show?
Yeah.
Paul Hollis says, great show. Thanks.
Oops.
Thanks. Oh, Paul, what was it that was called The Hollow Man? We saw that on. Awesome show tonight, Joe Conjal said. Very interesting. Thank you, Sean. And of course, Robin Joan. Paul, there was, I know.
Marjorie says, so interesting. Such fun. Thanks.
Thanks, Marjorie. Paul Hollis, you want to bring his name up again? All right. He has a publishing company and he writes a series of books called The Hollow Man. And tonight, believe it or not, we watched an FBI show, FBI Most Wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It was on last night. We watched it today while we were having lunch. And there was a serial killer. And guess what they called him, Paul? The Hollow Man. We were like, oh, no.
Oh, no. Yikes. He's turned into a serial killer.
George says, great show. Please tell my granddaughter, Kaliki. Hello, sweetie.
I think he wants Sean to say hello.
Oh, Sean, would you say hello to Kaliki?
Kaliki, hello.
Joe Conjal said Paul's series is fantastic.
It is.
Paul's series is fantastic, and it's brilliantly written.
Yes.
I mean,
really well written.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for tonight, folks. I'm going to move you over. I can figure out how to do it here. Let's see. There you go. I got you moved over. Thank you so much, John, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Stay right with us until we come back to you. Remind everybody, next Wednesday, right here, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, author D.G. McCool, sci-fi and fantasy author, should be really good. And really should be very interesting. Happy 3-year anniversary.
Yeah, happy 3-year anniversary.
And
that sounds funny.
Anything else that you would like to say?
I want to thank everybody for listening, and I want to thank Sean for being on the show. I want to thank all of the authors who've been so loyal to us, and all of our audience that has been so loyal to us over the last 3 years. It's been amazing, and we appreciate each and every one of you.
It's all your show.
And Sean mentioned how supportive and welcoming everyone's been on LinkedIn, all the authors. And for the most part, that's what we found, that authors are some of the best people in the world. We've had a lot of help along the way, and hope we can pay it back and pay it forward and help a lot more people too.
Met some of the most fabulous people.
No joke.
I've ever met.
No joke. Yeah. Really.
So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Well, until next time.
That's all, folks.
Night, guys.
Good night.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie, and you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DV.com.